Wesley Muhammad from the Nation of Islam, Dr. Wesley Muhammad. His credentials are too long to list, but just know that he is a black man and he loves black people. That is the most important thing. And I want to ask you, Brother Muhammad, how is it going?
It's going well, man. I think if this pandemic has done any good, it would or should make each of us value daily life much more than
Absolutely.
we did prior. Those of us who have lost one, two, or many, certainly that's a lesson that is not lost on us. So a lot has blessed me and my family and loved ones with life and with health. And so all I can say is all praises are due to Allah God.
Absolutely, absolutely. As you come in, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, because we want this message that Brother Muhammad is about to tell to all of us to be spread. I understand that Dr. Wesley is not someone who will be brought on to mainstream media, so we want to make sure his voice is heard by all of our people, any and everywhere. So, Brother Muhammad, I want to ask you just to start off about your life, your upbringing, and lead me into. I know you went to Morehouse. Just talk to me about your upbringing, where you're from, going to Morehouse, and how that experience ultimately ended up changing your life.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Um, Born in Detroit to the typical, what we call African American family. By typical, I mean both Christian and fatherless, unfortunately. That was my lot in life, if you will. And I was a Christian like the rest of my family. A time came in high school where, while I was not necessarily dissatisfied with being a Christian, I had questions. The Christians that I brought the questions to could not answer them. So they directed me to a scholar of the community. And I spent 2 hours with him, and life was never the same. I was a junior in high school. I went into his classroom on that day, a Christian with questions. I left a bitter atheist because the knowledge at that time was a bit too heavy for my handling. So in throwing out religion, I threw out the baby with the bathwater. I threw out God. I became an atheist. I was bitter because I was lied to. And I was in that state for about 2 years, my junior year and my senior year of high school. Then I went to Morehouse, a at this time not really a bitter atheist. The bitterness has subsided a bit, but I was a profoundly arrogant atheist. And I entered Morehouse College that way. But it was on the campus of Morehouse where I was introduced to the Muslims. And I heard a word from the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan that shook my atheism. Not only did I encounter the Muslims on campus, but very importantly, for the first time, I encountered the 5% Nation of Islam. And the 5%ers were my first teachers of Islam. Shout out to Wakil Allah, my enlightener. So I was surrounded by 5%ers. I was surrounded by FOI as an arrogant atheist. And the two of them taught me, and I grew out of my arrogance. I have, inshallah, and certainly my atheism. And I accepted the truth of Islam after. This was important. I close here. Because I was an atheist and I hated religion, I wasn't about to be spoon fed nobody's religion. So as I was being taught by 5%ers, as I was being taught by Muslims, I was studying. And I would accept nothing on face value. And I determined that I'm going to study everything. And wherever that critical study led me, and I studied under all of the groups, Morris Science Temple, the Nation of Akibulan. I studied them all. And under them all, I said, wherever the critical study leads me, well, that's where I would be. And that's where I am. With the
Wow.
Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan in the Nation of Islam.
Wow. Once again, we're talking to Dr. Wesley Muhammad, talking about his upbringing, kind of how he got into the nation. So, Brother Muhammad, you said you encountered these people in college and you encountered the nation in college. When did you finally decide? Because you had a long way to go to come from being a bitter atheist to the position that you are in now. When was it, how old would you say you were, that it hit you that, hey, it's time to make a life change in doing all of that studying that you just alluded to?
Well, the seed that is now growing, some would say flourishing, certainly is not, inshallah, at the end of its growth process, but the seed that is growing before our eyes right now was planted, Brother Jeff, in the cafeteria at Morehouse College. When I walked in looking for a brother, and what I found was a 5%er and an FOI actually engaged in theological debate. And in the course of that debate, I heard something that I had not heard before, and it revolutionized my consciousness. I didn't accept it at the time because I had to research it. But by hearing it, when I heard that 5% say, the black man is God, that had the effect on my soul as the white man is the devil had on Malcolm X. And while I hadn't studied it, I had to vet it, but that seed that was planted in me would fully grow out of me and would determine the trajectory of my life from that point on. Eventually, the 5%er, I latched onto him and he taught me. And I became a 5%er. First, wise God Allah, and then true Islam Allah. But then I studied and studied, and this was 1990. And then by 1992, May, I was ready to join the military training of men who belong to Islam in North America. I was ready to join the FOI and get registered in the Nation of Islam in Atlanta, Georgia, Mosque number 15. That was in May 1992. But from 1990, I have been studying with the 5% nation.
I want to touch on something you said there. I promise you all, we're going to get into Malcolm X. We're going to get into Minister Farrakhan. But hearing your story is so powerful, because you said you heard the black man is God, and that kind of changed their mindset. And even when I hear that right now in 2021, I mean, that's powerful. That is so powerful. It scares a lot of people. Some people might even say it's offensive. But when you say the black man is God, what are you saying? What does that mean, or what should that mean to our people?
Yes, sir. It, quite frankly, means exactly what it says. We in the Nation of Islam are not an atheistic group. We do not believe in the spook God of Western Christianity or even Western Islam. But we believe in God, the all-powerful, the almighty, the maker of heaven and earth. We understand that God is not only a man, but is a black man. We can vindicate this teaching from a critical study of all of the scriptures, especially in their original language. The Bible in its Hebrew and its Greek, the Quran and the Sunnah in the Arabic. We can absolutely demonstrate the truth of what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that God is a man and man is God. Now, that original creator of heaven and earth, who was not a spook, he was a man, a black man. We, the black man and woman of the world today, we are the direct descendants of the original creator. This is why, dear brother Jeff, all throughout Africa, so-called traditional African religion describes God, the creator, as the great ancestor. African religion is not wrong in that regard. African religion is very right in that designation of the creator God as the great ancestor, our ancestor, our we are the direct bloodline of the creator of heaven and earth. Now, the black man and woman in America today, of course, it's hard to see us as God because we fail. And so the book of Psalms, 86th chapter, I believe it is, David the psalmist says, and hear his words, talking to us, says, ye are gods, children of the most high God, because we are the direct bloodline of the most high God, the children of God. We too are gods. But then David says, but ye shall fall like men and die like one of the princes. Arise, O God, the children of God have fallen. We've taken a fall. So the black man and woman in America today, you are looking at fallen gods. The purpose.
Dr. Wesley, did we lose you? I hope we didn't lose Dr. Wesley. Oh, Dr. Wesley, are you there?
Now I'm here.
Okay, yeah, here we go. You was getting into it, man. I was feeling it, and I was like,
I
oh
was
man.
on my soapbox. I was concluding, though, and my
Yes,
concluding
sir.
part is the purpose of the Islam of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as taught, represented, and exemplified by the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, is to raise the falling God back into his true state as the living God.
Wow. Yeah, that was powerful. That man, and the beauty behind what you said and what you've been saying is that I can go back and reference this. You gave a Bible verse that you can go and read yourself. It's not just you speaking or Minister Farrakhan or Elijah Muhammad or whoever speaking. This is documented, and that is beautiful. That is a beautiful thing. But to make a slight transition, you're talking about the nation. You're talking about some of your people. It comes out recently that the New York Times, the state of New York, the government, or whoever up in New York has exonerated 2 members of the Nation of Islam in the killing of Malcolm X. Now, you are one of the people that I know for a fact. Now, I know there's a ton of other people, but you have been saying this for as long. I saw a video back in February, and that is 9 months ago, and I'm sure you've said it many, many other times about who really did it and who wasn't a part of the assassination of Malcolm X. Just my question is, does this vindicate the nation in a way that you want, that publicly now the government is saying, oops, we arrested the wrong guys and we've been putting the blame on this organization for over 50 years? Does that give the nation some kind of vindication, or how do you all in the leadership or even the members feel about the exoneration of 2 men who've been claiming innocence for over 50 years?
It certainly is a major step in the process of vindicating the Nation of Islam. the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. It is a big step in exonerating the nation. The exoneration of Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam, formerly Norman 3X Butler and Thomas 15X Johnson. The exoneration of those two brothers that is so long overdue. We credit the District Attorney of New York today for undertaking the investigation that led them to their conclusion that these two brothers had nothing to do with the murder of Malcolm X. The Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan has been stating he was there at that time. He has been stating from that day to this that those two brothers had nothing to do with the murder of Malcolm X. The exoneration of Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam are a step in the exoneration of the Nation of Islam. You have to understand that Norman 3X Butler and Thomas 15X Johnson, they were framed for the murder of Malcolm X, but they weren't framed for their own sake. Those particular brothers were framed in order to frame the Nation of Islam. Why did the New York Police Department, who before Thomas Hayes' 1977 affidavits, wherein he partially named his accomplices from Newark, that was 1977. But by March 1965, the New York Police Department already knew Leon 3X Davis, already knew and in fact interviewed Benjamin Thomas, already knew William 25X Bradley because he in fact was in their employ. They knew of the so-called New Jersey torpedoes, who are actually responsible with the actual mechanics, that is intelligent spy language mechanics. They were actually the mechanics who pulled the trigger and failed Minister Malcolm on that day. Why did they just not arrest and charge those Newark Muslims with the crime? Why frame innocent men who weren't at the Audubon Ballroom from New York? The reason is the mechanics who actually pulled the trigger on that day, while they were members of Muhammad Mosque number 25 in Newark, they weren't acting on behalf of Muhammad Mosque number 25 in Newark. They were acting on behalf of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and BOSSI, the intelligence division of the NYPD. This can be documented. So to pin the murder on them would lead right back to the paymasters, the FBI, the New York Police Department, then the CIA, U.S. military, and ultimately to the White House. So they framed well-known Muslims who did not have any connection to America's intelligence apparatus, but had a well-known connection to Muhammad Mosque number 7 in New York. So they framed those brothers in order to frame the Nation of Islam for the murder. In exonerating those brothers, that is a big step in exonerating the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who they falsely claim gave the kill order, and he didn't. And it goes a long way in exonerating the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, who the new version of this false narrative of Malcolm is trying to maliciously pin the murder or suggest that the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan was somehow involved in the murder when he was never even considered during the time, and for good reason, because he had nothing to do with the planning or the execution of the murder of Malcolm X.
Once again, I'm talking to Dr. Wesley Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. Dr. Wesley, I just want to really thank you for that thorough explanation of what took place. Backtrack a bit, I want to ask you, why is it that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, well, first of all, has Minister Louis Farrakhan ever come out and said, I apologize for some of the language that I made towards Malcolm X during that time? That's kind of the first part. And second, just, how does he feel knowing that, or no, let me take that back. How do you feel that they tried to derail the Nation of Islam by trying to pin Malcolm's murder and essentially rile up black people to get them to turn on your organization? But I do want to ask you about that first part about the language that Minister Louis Farrakhan may have been using back then.
The Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, as Minister Louis X of Boston, was a protege of Minister Malcolm. He loved dearly Minister Malcolm X. He looked up, and when you see those videos of Minister Malcolm X giving the enemy hell, invariably right behind him, you see this young brother bearing witness loudly to the truth that Minister Malcolm was speaking, that Minister Louis X, he loved Malcolm, and he loved the teacher of both he and Malcolm, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So when there was a parting of the ways between these two men that Minister Louis X at the time loved so dearly, it hurt him. It hurt Minister Farrakhan when Malcolm ratcheted things up in the press and used the press to scandalize his teacher, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as he did. This inflamed and hurt not only Minister Louis X, but it hurt and inflamed all of those in the nation who loved Malcolm, but loved the teacher of Malcolm and knew, as Malcolm said, that it was Elijah who gave Malcolm his wings. This is true. And Malcolm never stopped bearing witness that it was Elijah who gave him his wings, that he would soar, and we all loved his soaring. But when he made the decisions that he made to use the white media to attack the institution of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad like he did, it inflamed us. It hurt us, including the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Now, this is important about the language. And this is what is missed on almost all of the discourse on Malcolm. The language. There's all of this focus on the language and want the Muslims to apologize for the language that we use. Why did we use the language? It is because Malcolm, on his announcement, March 8th, 1964, he called, in his announcing his separation from the Nation of Islam, he called for his followers to organize rifle clubs. Malcolm and his men immediately began arming themselves. We in the Nation of Islam do not carry arms. We do not carry so much as a pen knife. It is against our religious law to have weapons in our home. So when Malcolm, on his separation, immediately started building an arsenal, this is true. And what folks don't know, before Muslims started attacking with words, there were physical altercations with Malcolm's men who came to Mosque number 7 with weapons drawn, and we don't have weapons. So Malcolm's men were flashing their guns at us, knowing we didn't have guns, was aggressing the Muslims, this is true, with weapons. This is what was going on behind the scenes while we weren't attacking Malcolm in the press. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, there were physical altercations where Malcolm's men ran up on us with their weapons, and we took their weapons from them and beat them up. Facts. Now, there's physical altercations occurring now between Malcolm's men and FOI. Malcolm's armed men and unarmed FOI. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad sends down the instruction: leave Malcolm alone. Yes, some of the captains were saying Big Red need to be killed. That nigga Red, he need to be killed. Yes, that was said, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was hearing it, and he sent down the order to leave Malcolm alone. So, Malcolm's men has an arsenal of weapons that they are using to aggress on our space. And there's physical altercations between armed them and unarmed us. We're fighting. We get the order. We cannot touch Malcolm. We got to leave him alone. So the only thing we're left with is words, is language. And so while all of this is going on the streets, we could only express our love for our teacher in the face of all of this scandalizing of our teacher and physical altercations and aggression on the street with armed followers of Malcolm, and we can't touch Malcolm. So what we can do is just put pen to paper and defend our teacher against the scandalization and let off our steam against Malcolm, since we could not touch him per divine order. So those who want the minister to apologize, and he did absolutely express regret for saying words that contributed to an atmosphere not created by him, not even created by the Nation of Islam, an atmosphere that was created once Malcolm decided to use our enemy's press to scandalize his teacher. That created the atmosphere. We, the Muslims, absolutely contributed to that atmosphere, and the Honorable Minister Farrakhan absolutely expressed regret at contributing to an atmosphere in which the enemy of all of us can enter and throw the stone that he hoped would kill two birds.
Absolutely, absolutely. Once again, we're talking to Dr. Wesley Muhammad. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, because that is a story. Those are stories, those are messages, Dr. Muhammad, that I've never heard before. I don't know if anybody in the chat, if you can acclaim that you've heard some of these things before, but what he is telling right now, I feel like is an exclusive. I feel like it's something that I've never heard.
I want to say something on that point. I understand. Before folks started accusing me of fabricating, what we are saying is two sources. This is the report that I am working on. It's 630 pages. This is just the note. I'm working feverishly on distilling from these 630 pages of notes on the murder of Malcolm X, distilling 100 to 300 pages of document. Everything we said, we are documenting. Most importantly, student minister Dimitri Muhammad. Right now, you should all avail yourself to his important work. But didn't y'all kill Malcolm X? Myth busting, the propaganda against the Nation of Islam. He does a great job in helping to dismantle the false narrative that the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm. The government fabricated false narrative that the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm X. So we are saying things that you and many others have not heard before, but not because we have access to new knowledge that dropped from the sky. This information has been known, but the problem is everybody is beholden to the official narrative. And the official narrative happens to be a lie, a government fabricated narrative, the popular narrative of Malcolm X that everybody is beholden to, blindly beholden to. It is government fabricated. So the truth that has been available all of these years, people who write on Malcolm X, and I have to cite these and I will close. See, these are the pillars of the Malcolm X narrative, the false Malcolm X narrative. Certainly regarding the assassination, Zach Condo's unraveling the assassination of Malcolm X. Carl Levin's The Judas Factor. Manny Marable's Malcolm X, and most recently, Les and Tamara Payne, The Dead Are Rising. These, and of course, we can't leave out Peter Goldman, The Death and Life of Malcolm X. These are the pillars of the false narrative of Malcolm X, and everybody is beholden to them, and they are very selective with their data. They omit key points of data, and they overemphasize or misrepresent other points of data. So if you haven't heard this, it's not because we are spinning this or because this data has not been around all of this time. You haven't heard it because the popular understanding is imprisoned within the government fabricated official false narrative of Malcolm X.
Wow. Wow. Once again, I'm talking to Dr. Wesley Muhammad. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe to your friends, because this message needs to continue to get out. This message needs to continue to be spread. Now, Dr. Wesley, after the killing, we're going to move on, I promise. But you're so interesting. You have so much knowledge that I have to continue to ask about that. After the death of Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam, honestly, before the death of Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam was riding really high, I will say, in a sense of notoriety, in a sense of grabbing members. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and so obviously one of the most famous athletes in the history of the world is Muhammad Ali, and they didn't want a Nation of Islam member to be world champion. I've done and researched a ton of stuff about Ali and what took place when he was converting over from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. I'm saying that to say, after the death of Malcolm X and pinning the murder a year later on members of the nation could have dissolved. I mean, there's a ton of organizations that were around. I'm wearing a Black Panther shirt right now that were around and very, very prevalent in the 60s that isn't around anymore. But somehow the nation was able to move past that. Every organization's had its bumps and bruises, But to continue, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to be as strong as ever in 2021, just how was it that your organization was able to, withstand the death of Malcolm, withstand the death of Elijah Muhammad, and somehow, some way, members like yourself, Nuri Muhammad, Ben X, 19 Keys, etc., continue to uplift the organization to maybe its strongest point ever in history?
Thank you for that question. And thank you for that acknowledgement. It's very important because part of the false narrative is that the Nation of Islam came with Malcolm and it died with Malcolm. That Malcolm brought all of the numbers, and upon his death, the Nation of Islam swiveled until 1975, experiencing the breathing of its final breath. Nothing could be further from the truth. Malcolm X never had numbers, not from the Nation of Islam in terms of when he left. He didn't take many from the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam's numbers continue to increase. And I have, Brother Jeff, I have 1968 FBI documents with the FBI lamenting the failure of all of their COINTELPRO programs directed at the Nation of Islam, including their use of Malcolm against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and their fabricating the feud between the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X, resulting in his death. The FBI takes credit for both of those, but lament that none of their programs against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad were successful. Why was it not successful? And why, of all of the targets of the FBI's counterintelligence program, all of the targets were successfully destroyed by the FBI, including the Nation of Islam, but none ultimately in 1975, but none were able to resurrect. None were able to have a presence today as we had the presence then. No other group has as commanding a presence after being targeted by COINTELPRO like the Nation of Islam has. Why? It is because, dear brother Jeff, the Nation of Islam was never a political organization, a source of conflict between Malcolm X and his teacher, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Malcolm wanted a political organization, but the Nation of Islam was never that. The Nation of Islam is a movement established by God himself. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not and is not a black leader. He was then the messenger of God. I think the fact that the Nation of Islam is the only group targeted by COINTELPRO who has a strong life after such targeting, the only one, I think that goes a long way in validating the point that the Nation of Islam isn't a secular organized organization, but we are a divinely organized and backed organization or movement.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's special because, like I said, there were so many times where your organization could have folded, or movement could have folded, and was able to withstand. And like I said, 2021, it is just as strong, if not as strong as ever. Once again, I'm talking to Dr. Wesley be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, let your friends and family know that we're having this conversation and allow them a chance to hear, Dr. Wesley Muhammad's side of the story and what is very much well documented. Dr. Wesley, I want to shift
I
gears a
just
little
want
bit.
to put that Dr. Wesley Muhammad, brother Dr. Wesley Muhammad doesn't have a side of the story. The Nation of Islam has a side of the story, and this is what is critically missing from the false narrative. That's why I appreciate you, brother Jeff, because most people most platforms who discuss Malcolm X, they go out of their way to leave the perspective of the Nation of Islam out of that conversation. They don't want to hear from us. The Nation of Islam has a side of the story, and the recent exoneration of Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam validates our side of the story.
Brother Muhammad, you don't have to explain to me. I understand. I read history. I look at it like, how can I take the word of our oppressor? So I know that can't be. There's too many examples throughout the history of Black Americans that your oppressor has misconstrued the story and has infiltrated organizations and told a lie and has made a lie of the organization. I mentioned having this Black Panther t-shirt on. I mentioned Muhammad Ali, how, like, if you listen about Muhammad Ali nowadays, you would think he was the most loved person in 1965 and 66. He was the most hated man in America, like, easily. And so to tell that story now, to hear it now, and to know the truth.
Muhammad Ali,
Yeah.
1965.
So I trust me. That's why I'm glad you are here to tell what it may be considered the other side and able to speak up for the nation for sure.
I'm happy to do so.
And I want to shift gears just a bit, Dr. Wesley. You are an advocate and speak a ton about hip hop and about rap music and the what takes place. And one word that you have used is phantom frequency. When I say phantom frequency, I want to kind of build this up a little bit. You talk about the 808s and the chakra, what takes place in the frequencies of these beats and this music that goes through our bodies and how it makes us feel and how it can react a certain way and those are the things that, and someone might hear that and like, oh man, this guy, I don't know what he's talking about. I listen to rap music because I like rap music. And then on a much larger scale, and someone who isn't associated with different things, but Kanye West said the same thing. So now several ears might be perked up. Okay, Kanye said it, but Dr. Wesley's been talking about this for a while. What is it that the trap music and the trap beats and some of the things that are taking place in hip hop with its sound sonically, what can that do to someone's body, and what do you think that is doing to our community?
Yes, sir. First, let me acknowledge or confess, however you want to construe it, I am a trap music fan.
Same.
My
Same.
condolences, my condolences to the wife, the children, the family, the loved ones of Brother Young Dolph. I have said publicly I am a Young Dolph fan. The problem in terms of our overall discussion of the weaponization of frequency, and we spoke about 808, I want to be real clear. In that regard, the problem isn't the 808 drum. The problem is the weaponization of the 808 drum against Black listeners. What do I mean by that? Global African culture understood the science of music, the science of frequency in particular, our most sacred ritual performances aimed at inducing alternate states of consciousness for spiritual purposes. These rituals involved drumming at particular frequencies because the drum produced frequencies are what induces the particular states of consciousness, trance states. So the science of music, the science of frequency, beat, drum derived frequency in particular, has been part of the sacred science of the Black man globally for thousands of years. The 808 drum machine and 808 beats, I love them, I vibe them. They, in fact, resonate with Black physiology. And so therein is the potential for divine activity to take place. But also in the wrong hands, there's the potential for devilishment to take place. So the 808 beat or drum machine that produced the low frequency beats that resonate with the body in a particular way and can induce the brain to synchronize on certain frequencies, that in and of itself is not a problem. To effectively weaponize a beat, you have to use it to put a people in a particular state, theta state or trance state, but then you have to give them the command message. See, hypnosis, the ultimate act of hypnosis is not to sink the patient into the hypnotic state, but it is to direct their action by implanting a command message that once they come out of that state, they will carry out, unbeknownst to them, that they're carrying out somebody else's instruction. So there's the beat that produces the state, the trance, the hypnosis in 808 beats. Low frequencies absolutely can do that. But if you ride that beat with a divine message, then you can produce a divine outcome. If you ride that beat with a wicked command message, then you can produce a wicked outcome. So I love Future, like rhythm of 808s, my trap confession. Future makes some of the most awesome use in the modern era of 808s. In one of his most 808 drenched songs, I Hate the Real Me, the hook says, I want to get as high as I can. I want to get as high as I can. I want to get as high as I can. See, that's the command message riding the 808 beat. In this case, the 808 ain't the problem. The command message is the problem. Now, you take that command message out and ride that 808 beat with another message. I want to be as divine as I can because the Black man is God. I want to be as divine as I can. I want to be as divine as I can. I want to be as divine as I can instead of I want to get as high as I can. Then it will produce a different outcome. So the 808 itself isn't the problem, but the 808 manipulated and paired with the wrong command message. That's the problem. And unfortunately, that defines trap music today. And so the message, the command message must be changed. We don't need to abandon the 808. I love the 808. It resonates with my physiology. as it does with most black people. What needs to be done is the command message right in those beats need to be changed.
Yeah, I love that because I'd be a hypocrite if I said I didn't listen to it neither. I know for a fact that I listen to trap music, rap music, these things, but I can definitely see where that beat resonates and has like the frequency and the command message is definitely repeated over and over and over again. Sticking with hip hop and music, you are known for spreading the message that weed feminizes the black man. Explain that to me. What does that mean? Where do you see that? What makes you say that statement?
First, let me thank you. I love how you said it because you said it accurately. I was waiting to hear if you would repeat the popular narrative, which is totally false, but has dogged me from the day, actually the evening, when I first gave that lecture at Mas Mariam and spoke on how weed feminizes the black man. That night, all the blogs said, Nation of Islam minister Wesley Muhammad says weed makes a black man gay. I never said that. I said weed feminizes the black man. And what we have to understand is there's sexual feminizations and there's non-sexual forms of feminization. But all we know is sexual feminization. So we hear feminization and we automatically think homosexuality. I never said that. That was never my postulate. I said, as you accurately quoted me, we feminizes the black man in a myriad of ways. Now, what I spoke on then and what was the easiest illustration of how weed feminizes the black man is the hyper emotional state that it produces in us. Homosexuality isn't a sign, the greatest sign of weed feminizing the black man. Hyper emotionality is, because this new form of marijuana, which is not God's holy herb or herb, cannabis. Ain't nobody smoking God's cannabis today, to be real clear. Ain't nobody smoking. I don't care if you grow it, you plant seeds in your own backyard. The seed that you put in your backyard was a seed generated in a laboratory, ultimately. The marijuana, with this excessive level of THC and this diminished level of CBD, this is a grafted product. And the first such grafting occurred in the laboratories of the U.S. Army Chemical Corps under a program called Conquer by Cannabis. The U.S. Army in the 60s studied and manipulated marijuana for the purpose of conquering target enemy groups. First, their own youth who were rising up on the college campuses against the Vietnam War, they were the first victims of weaponized weed. It wasn't even black people. The first victims of weaponized weed in this country were the sons of daughters of the elite of this country. The flower people are a gross product of the U.S. military and White House, targeting the anti-war movement that erupted on the campuses. And they dropped this weaponized weed on them and just made them crazy. One result of that are the flower people, the peace niggas. So what the excessive levels of THC does, that is the signature of all of the weed smoked today, that excessive THC, it does a couple of things. It diminishes testosterone in men. And that's very important. Testosterone is, as we have documented, let me get this. As we documented in 800 pages and 2,000 footnotes, Understanding the Assault, Volume 2, The Pot Plot, Marijuana, Hip Hop, and the Scientific Assault on Black America, that excessive synthetic THC, because it's not natural, when we ingest it, inhale it, or ingest it in brownies, that excessive THC diminishes testosterone in men, and testosterone is the power hormone in men. It also reconfigures the cerebral blood profile of the male smoker. And so emotionality, men and women have different emotional profiles because we have a different cerebral blood flow profile. The levels of blood flow in the brain in particular areas differ between men and women. And this difference accounts for the different emotional profiles between men and women. Weed smoking, chronic weed smoking, this new weed with the excessive THC, it rearranges the cerebral blood flow of the male smoker. And so the cerebral blood flow of the male smoker mirrors that of a female. And this is why the emotional profile of a chronic user of this weed mirrors the emotional profile of women. That's what I was talking about, the hyper emotionality of men, not homosexuality. I didn't go there. I didn't say that. And so let me say this on that point. No, I would have never then or now contemplated smoking weed turning a grown man gay. I would have never contemplated that then, and I could never contemplate that now. It is the case, however, that a fetus in the womb of a woman absolutely can be set on a course of homosexuality and even transgenderism if that mother ingests this synthetic THC while she's carrying that child. That absolutely is a fact. But I do not suspect any grown man smoking a blunt will automatically have all of a sudden desires for another man. That is not my narrative.
I'm glad you were able to make that very clear, make that very distinct for anyone who tried to misconstrue your words. See, this is what this is for, Dr. Muhammad. This is for you to come in and clear your name, even though you don't have to clear your name. You certified out here. Let's just make it real. But still, to tell it like it is, like, yo, y'all twisting up my words. This is what I said then. This is what I'm saying now. And I promise you, at least on this platform, I can't speak for anybody else, but on this platform, we don't twist words. We go right to the horse's mouth, and we want to hear you.
I promise you, I was listening with how you expressed it, and you said it right, and it took thought, because the popular narrative, we make you gay. And so it falls off the tongue easily. I get it. I would not have been mad at you. I would have corrected you, but I would not have been mad at you because I understand how easy it is. But you kept your brother's words right, and I appreciate you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Dr. Muhammad. I don't want to keep you all night, but there are a few more things that I want to ask you about. I want to talk about, we'll switch gears a little bit more here. I want to talk to you about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Minister Louis Farrakhan is someone that I see as, one of the great heroes of the black community in the history of black men, at least here in America. But that is not the mainstream narrative of Louis Farrakhan. If you say Louis Farrakhan on any major platform, hell, even on YouTube, you might get banned. They've banned him from social media platforms. Anytime anyone says that they are associated with or admire Minister Louis Farrakhan, they get admonished in the public, they get talked about and thrown down to the wolves and their name dragged through the mud. Dr. Muhammad, I want to ask you, why is it that, and it's a fairly simple question, but I want to hear from you. Why is it that the mainstream media has this vendetta against the Honorable Louis Farrakhan?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that very important question. What most people don't know is that the aim of this world is to kill the messenger of God. People study secret societies and covert operations, and all of this is good, but most don't get to the deepest level of the rabbit hole. The deepest level of the rabbit hole with these secret societies and deep states and covert operations. The deepest level is this. This world's aim is to kill the messenger of God. The killing of the messenger of God, because, of course, the messenger of God is the herald of God, who is determined to end this current world, to sit down this regime of world rulers globally. So when the world rulers recognize the messenger of God in their midst, their aim is to kill him. And part of the process of killing him is to make his death acceptable to the people. How do you make the death of the messenger of God acceptable to the people? You bring false charges against him. The writers write falsely and negatively against him. Remember, Pontius Pilate saw Jesus as an enemy and attached in a mocking fashion on his cross, King of the Jews. Pontius Pilate didn't want Jesus to upset his world government. It was limited in scope, but his political power was threatened by the presence of Jesus in his midst. So Pontius Pilate conspired with the Jews, the scribes, the Pharisees. The scribes are the writers. Jesus was doing good work among the people, so the people loved him. Jesus was healing the sick. So those healed by his hand and his word, they loved him. The family of those who were blind but now see, they loved Jesus. So there was a real love for Jesus among the people. You can't just kill a man like that without risking an uprising and revolt among the people. So the necessary step prior to the killing of the messenger of God is to villainize the messenger of God among the people, use the press, use the writers to villainize the messenger of God. And that is what you see. The Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan is the messenger of God. He is the Jesus of those very texts that I was referencing. The Jesus who healed the blind. That's not necessarily physical, it's spiritual and metaphysical. And the people love Farrakhan. And so, in order to do what this world has in their heart to do to this messenger of God, they have to villainize him, use their media to villainize this man, but their efforts fail utterly, even though all of the media are in chorus in repeating the false talking points against the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He's an anti-Semite. He's anti-LGBTQ. He killed Malcolm. All of these are lies. They're talking points. They're false talking points. All of the media uses them, but the people love Farrakhan as much today as before they encountered these lies. That is a sign that God's hand is on this man, Farrakhan. So nothing, Satan, his enemy, you're my enemy, nothing that he does has been effective. They banned him from social media. Farrakhan's influence with the people has not diminished a bit.
Once again, we're talking to Dr. Wesley Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. Now, Dr. Wesley, what you said is very much true. I was introduced to Minister Louis Farrakhan by my dad when I was a young child. And I feel like the narrative then, and I'm only 25, but I feel like the narrative, let's say roughly 20 years ago, wasn't what it is now, at least from what I understand of Farrakhan. You would have a greater understanding than me. But I want to say that the push of him being anti-Semitic is now larger. I mean, it's beyond disbelief. Anytime any celebrity, athlete, whoever takes a picture, makes reference. The biggest example got me when Damon John shouted out Minister Louis Farrakhan at the DMX memorial, at the memorial services of DMX, and people jumped on top of him so much so that he deleted the tweet. Now, that to me is another concern of being weak. But the biggest thing that people were criticizing him of, or Minister Louis Farrakhan, is that he's an anti-Semitic. Where does this narrative come from that Farrakhan hates Jewish people? Where does this come from? Because I've seen a number of sermons or teachings or preachings where he always states, I don't hate Jewish people, but somehow, some way, the folks on what we call mainstream media seem to be running with this. Where does this come from, and how can we, if at all, try to dispel it?
We certainly can. That is a canard that they, the press, have trolled the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan with since 1984. They have trolled him with that canard since that time when he bust on a national scene so strongly, so powerfully, in his defense of his brother, Jesse Jackson, who the Jews were organizing against, and even some seeking his life. Since 1984 till today, the chief talking point in the attempt to villainize Farrakhan is this bludgeon of anti-Semitism. It's nonsensical from the start to call the Honorable Brother, for white Jews to call the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan anti-Semitic, because he may be critical of aspects of white Jewish behavior. White Jews have never been a Semitic people. Yiddish is in no ways a Semitic language. So the prerogative that they take by even using the language anti-Semitic is an act of evil itself. It's an act of usurpation, all while they are acting so evilly against Arabs who are Semitic people. So the truth of the matter is, and we have made the case, that these white Jews who their main talking point is to call somebody an anti-Semite, in order to deflect legitimate criticism against them, they happen to be some of the world's greatest bona fide anti-Semites. Their treatment of bona fide Semitic people on the planet absolutely certifies them as the world's truest anti-Semites. But the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, he made so many important points that are truthful, but this truth exposed the lie that the Black-Jewish relationship was built upon. The Black-Jewish relationship benefited Jews and ill-affected Blacks. But this was an arrangement that most Jews are heavily invested in. The Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan has been telling the truth about that relationship, that very damaging, that very anti-Black relationship, and in order to deflect that criticism, he has been trolled with the false charge of anti-Semitism. So the reason you hear it so often is because they don't want the people to listen to what Farrakhan is saying, because if you listen to what he's saying, if you move past the anti-Semitic smokescreen, if you are strong enough to move through it, to listen to this man, you will see that he is not teaching hate. He's teaching truth, but it's a very painful truth to those who are guilty of what the truth is calling out.
Wow, that is an amazing way to put that, because like you said, if anyone, anytime I hear that Farrakhan is an anti-Semite or hates Jewish people, whatever, it's people reading quote unquote these lectures or these things or whatever that he gave. But I've watched a ton of Farrakhan videos. You are in direct connection with the minister, and I've never once in all of these videos heard him say that he hates Jews. Ever heard it?
Mr. Louis Farrakhan is absolutely not a hateful man. He is a man of love, not the cheap love that most of us know or engage in or seek to engage in. Farrakhan's love is that divine love, the love of God, because Farrakhan's heart is a heart made after the heart of God himself. Farrakhan is not anti-LGBTQ. That's the new canard, because, of course, the gay mafia is rivaling the Jewish mafia in terms of power of perception of the people.
you about to get us banned off the internet with that one.
That's real. So now the new canard is, because we've been beaten down so effectively, the canard that he is an anti-Semite. So now the new canard is he's anti-LGBTQ. He is not. He does not allow us to be. We write. Allah has blessed me to write and document the scientific origins. By scientific, I mean wicked science. The wicked scientific origins of much of the Black LGBTQ phenomenon today. But in documenting that, the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, my teacher, my life coach, he admonishes me, he teaches me and us, we cannot even give the impression that we are hateful of our people who happen to be LGBTQ. Farrakhan loves all Black people, regardless of the state that we meet him in, and every single one of us, starting with me, meet him in a state that we want to be brought up out of. So Farrakhan is a lover of people. He has the heart of God. Now, God's heart, as he loves the world. God so loved the world, but it wasn't the world of rulership that prevailed. The world that God loved was the world that was to come, that he sent his son and sacrificed his son in order to bring into existence the world of righteousness. God loves that world and all of the people who qualify for that world, and that is black, and there are some whites, and there are some Jews who qualify for that world that God loves, and all of us who love God love those whom God loves. But this world, God don't love it, nor does Farrakhan love it. This world is the world of Satan. God don't love Satan. Farrakhan don't love Satan. And Brother Wesley don't love Satan.
And Brother Jeff don't love Satan either. I'm gonna throw that out there too. I would say that too. I mean, don't leave me out. Yes, sir. Yes. Now, no, Brother Wesley, I want to ask you this: when you don't have to call out anyone, you can let me do it. But when you hear of instances, like I said, where a celebrity, an athlete, a person of prominence, a person who has a large following or whatever, post a picture, post a Farrakhan quote, post a clip or whatever, and then they get all this backlash, and then they delete it, or then they say, "Oh, I don't promote hate of any group of people or all these things," and they kind of publicly bash him after just praising him, but they're only doing it because of what came with it. How does that make him feel? How does that make members of the nation feel? How does that, like, because I understand he's been dealing with it for a long time now, but he is human, and you all are human, and this is, your leader. How does that make you feel when you know how great he is? I know how great he is, and hell, even these people know how great he is, but the masses has scared them into buckling and to denounce a man who was a black icon.
I promise you, it hurts us who follow him way more than it affects him. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said of his chief minister, the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that this world can't bother his minister, the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. Farrakhan is unbothered by the wiles of Satan. Brother Wesley is bothered. Absolutely, Brother Wesley gets bothered. When I see that, I call it switching. The black community has criminalized and villainized snitching. I've suggested that we should criminalize switching. What is switching? It's what you just described. Black people who know the good works of Farrakhan and acknowledge the good works of Farrakhan, but then when Satan approaches them, they switch up. Now, switching bothers me. It doesn't bother the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. He understands. And I am trying to grow, rise above my emotions into the thinking of God and take his color. But switching absolutely bothers me, but I understand it. What Satan, what these people, what their intent is when a black or white person acknowledges the goodness of the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, when they are pounced upon, the aim is to send a message that there is a heavy price to pay to support Farrakhan. The aim is to isolate Farrakhan. They want to isolate him so that when they make their move, he will not, they hope, have no support from the people. And so their method of isolating him is to make it costly to publicly support him. So all of those black or white who would dare to acknowledge the obvious, that this is a good man. Anyone who would dare acknowledge the obvious, The aim is to make the penalty so high, pounce on them so hard that nobody would want to come out and show the minister support. But the masses of the people see that and see right through it. So while those who are pounced upon, some of them switch up. I won't speak of them because I'm not on my father's level yet. I feel some type of way. But trust, he's unbothered by that. He's been doing this a long time. He loves Black people. He has loved Black people despite the hate that Black people give all leaders who try to help us. We wear Black lovers of us, we wear them down with Black hate. He has been doing this for 60 years. He has endured it for 60 years. He's unbothered by it today. He understands the bigger picture. So switching don't bother him, even though it still bothers me and many of us with him.
I don't blame you. It bothers me too. I'm not even a member. I just hate the fact that this man. You see, the lifting of certain Black leaders because through the years, because they've been gone for so long, the narrative gets to changing. Whether that's Martin Luther King, whether that's Malcolm X, so on and so forth. So many Black leaders, their message has been altered and screwed in the mainstream media as opposed to what they really were saying. But it's because their lives were taken and they weren't here to speak for themselves. Where Farrakhan's been here the entire time, and
Yes,
there's no construing
last
messenger.
minute stand.
And there's no construing a message when the person is live and well and can tell you that ain't true. Like you know what I'm saying? Like that is totally so. That's why I hate the fact that there's so many Black people of influence who may even really love Farrakhan, but they do in silence, or they do it in the shadows, or even when they do it in public, they're bashed so much to where they have to now. Not only do they have to take back what they said that was the truth, because I made this point the other day broadcast. I said when you hear the messages of Black excellence and Black leaders and people that just make sense and that resonates with you, like you can't ignore it. It's like catching the virus, right? Like you're stuck with it, and you're stuck with it forever. It's something you can't get rid of. So when I listen to Minister Louis Farrakhan and these messages that he said 30 years ago, right? Like some of them are 30 years ago, 40 years ago in the 80s and 90s. I cannot nothing but love and admire this man because he's been teaching that for, like you said, 60 years. And so I think if more people continue to be introduced to his preachings, and they don't have to come to the nation, but to hear his preachings and hear what he has to say, they would feel the same way I do. And any chance that he may get that chance to be in a mainstream spotlight, they take away his social media. They take away the capital of these people who may highlight him. And that to me is a crying shame for our people.
What you just described is precisely why they do their best to cover him with such an ugly blanket, because they know his love longevity overpowered Black hesitancy regarding him. Any Black person who is able to encounter him, they talk about Black hesitancy with this vaccine. They have created a Black hesitancy toward the Honorable Brother Mr. Farrakhan. They tried to. But they know that it's paper thin, that the only thing that has to happen is a Black person to actually listen to him. For a Black person to actually have access to him, and that hesitancy towards him will disappear. So they want to keep Black people away from him. In order for their lie to be effective, they have to keep Black people from him, keep us from listening to him, keep us from being impacted by his love. And because once we actually hear him, see him, experience Farrakhan, the hesitancy is gone, the lie evaporates.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right, and that is why, as long as I have breath in my body, I will never say a bad word about the minister because he is someone that impacts me as well. Dr. Wesley, I've kept you for a very long time, but I've enjoyed every second of this conversation. I want to, just personally thank you once again for coming on to our platform, for speaking with me, for dispelling a lot of rumors, for clearing your name, to tell the truth, to tell the Nation of Islam side and things. And I just want to say thank you. And if you have any words, please go ahead and share.
Um, Tremendously honored, Brother Jeff, to you, to my brother, Dr. Boyce Watkins. I'm a great admirer, respecter of, and I love him. I'm honored to be given a privilege of sharing some words with you, sharing space and time with you and your great audience on your platform. Thank you for considering the Nation of Islam in this conversation about Malcolm X. The courage and integrity that you showed tonight, Brother Jeff, has endeared you to me for a long time. So I appreciate you, and I pray that Allah blesses you with continued success.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wesley. You can find Dr. Wesley right here at drwesley.online. That's www.drwesleyonline. He has products, sermons, books, all kinds of things that you can find right there on his website. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button on your way out. I appreciate it once again, Dr. Wesley.